Well, hello, California. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much. You may be seated. You may be seated. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be back up here in Hollywood Hills, California again. This is like the second time in 6 or 8 months I've been out here, but it's good to be out here. And earlier today we talked about a renewable energy program with some executives in Los Angeles. A great discussion. A lot of groundwork was laid on that. Um, and we'll be talking about that as we go through the campaign this year about how we're going to pursue this and make it attainable for the average American. We're not going to make it where you have to pay for a $70,000 vehicle and have one charging port in the city. We're going to get that infrastructure in place. Then we'll roll out the program. You know, I'm here tonight to talk about this campaign year that just started. 2024 is going to be unlike any campaign, I think, in recent history. We have candidates from all across the board. Some candidates are out there saying that the first thing they're going to do after they're sworn into office is become a dictator. Well, let me make you this promise here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing I'm going to do at the end of this campaign, when I'm sworn in, is become a president for all the people. All the people. Irregardless if you voted for me or not, I will be a president for everybody in this country. You know, during the past 3 years, our nation has been through many things. We have gone through a once in a lifetime pandemic. We've become more polarized. Instead of talking about our disagreements, we take to the streets in violence. For us to move together as a nation, we must come together as a nation. Tonight, I want to lay out for you my plan to return America to the nation it once was, the nation I remember growing up as a kid. You know, in the past 3 years, almost 4 years, we've seen progress from a record high unemployment of 15% to down below 4% now. Under a program that I call Enhanced Unemployment, we will reform the unemployment system, a system that was taken advantage of during the pandemic. And it really was. Recently, the Department of Labor announced there are 1.6 jobs available for every American. Think about that tonight. In this room, there are 1.6 jobs available for every person sitting in this room. It is time for us to go back to work. The excuses are done. It's time to return to work. Under a new system called Enhanced Unemployment, everyone on unemployment will have to have a minimum of 5 job interviews a week to qualify for continued benefits. And every able-bodied American will have a job. Now, let me make this point clear tonight. When I say every able-bodied American, I'm not talking about our seniors. They've earned their retirement. I'm not talking about the stay-at-home parents. They have made the arrangements and it's working. Who I am talking about, Helen, is a person who took unemployment during the pandemic and never returned to the workforce. This must change, and under my administration, it will. We must take control of the outrageous prices people pay for prescription drugs. You know, just the other day, I was speaking to a dear friend of mine back in Texas, and she told me that she just paid over $700 for a prescription that she needed. It wasn't something voluntarily, something that she needed. How is that fair? How is that fair when Big Pharma is making millions every year? That needs to come to an end. You know, when it comes to our nation's borders, we must protect our borders. The United States has always been a nation that welcomes people from throughout the world, but we do it through the proper methods. I think about this tonight. My pastor back in Texas, one of my pastors back in Texas, he came from Ghana. He didn't enter this country crossing the Rio Grande River. He entered this country the right way. He flew into Texas. He applied for his papers. He applied for his citizenship. He's in the process of doing that now. He did it the right way. You just don't walk into the United States or walk through border areas. Almost a year ago, I made a trip to El Paso and visited our southernmost border. When I visited the international bridge that connects the United States and Mexico, I saw hundreds of people crossing the bridge, entering the United States the proper way, not crossing the Rio Grande River, going in people's lands, entering the United States the improper way. We must reestablish our borders. And under my administration, I will make you this guarantee: we will reestablish our borders, and we will do it in California. We'll do it in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. On the world stage, we must be a protector of democracy. We've heard that word a lot, a protector of democracy. The United States is one of the leading democracies left in the world, and it will be one of the leading democracies that remains in this world. As a world leader, we must do what it takes to protect democracy. And that starts at the state level. During the pandemic, we've seen schools shuttered, now reopen, and we've seen an increased polarization in our nation. To restore our nation to greatness, we must start in our nation's schools. Our nation's schools are the foundation for where greatness begins. Since the pandemic, our nation's classrooms have become a political battlefield. It's a battlefield where our students will suffer. Under my administration, we will end that battle and return education to the classrooms. We will teach the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, the good, the bad, and the ugly of our history. By doing this, we can ensure that our next generation does not repeat the same mistakes. That's the only way we can avoid these things happening again. We shouldn't sanitize history. We should teach this generation that we made mistakes. Was slavery wrong? Yes, it was wrong. Did we do everything perfect as a nation? Absolutely not, we didn't. But we must teach those mistakes to the next generation so they don't repeat them in the future. One of the best things in the world is I've had the good fortune to be married to a full-time educator for over almost going 30 years. And she has served in the classroom as an elementary school teacher. Early on in our marriage, she wanted to teach summer school, teaching a full after teaching a full school year. You can imagine how that must be. She said at the time she did it for the extra pay. At the end of summer, as the fall term approached and summer school ended or winded down, she was tired, not fully charged, ready to take on another 9 months of school. Well, how do we solve Andrea's problem and other teachers' problems like that throughout the country? And it's not just Andrea. There are countless teachers in our nation who are going through that. We increase teacher pay. Now, you're going to ask me, isn't teacher pay something that is handled on the state level? Well, yeah, it is. You're correct. But I want to help. But here's what I want to do under Back to Basics. And you've heard a lot about me talk about this the latter part of last year and the first part of this year. I want to help the states fund the increases. This is not a Washington power grab, but a helping hand. The first thing we must do is return the federal budget to the 2019 spending levels and reduce unnecessary programs. There are programs still out there on the books from the pandemic. Let's eliminate these programs. Let's put this money toward education and use the difference to fund the increases. I understand that teacher pay is not a federal role, and I'm not going to make it a federal role. We're just going to make the funds available for that. That way, the states can allocate those increases. We must give teachers a livable wage. Too many of our teachers are living on the poverty level. We must bring this to an end. And we must return the federal budget to like I said, to to 2019 spending levels, reduce unnecessary spending, and use the difference to fund the increases. That's how we're going to do it. It may not make a whole lot of sense, but that's the basis of back to basics. Is return to the 2019 spending levels from where we are going in 24-25, and use the difference from 24-25 to 2019. That difference would fund the pay increases. Secondly, we must restore a true curriculum to the classrooms. We must get rid of this so-called woke education and return to teaching the ABCs, history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We must return a sense of patriotism to our classrooms as well. When I was in high school back in Texas, I had a government teacher who was from a different political party. But during my high school years, he never tried to instill his party's agenda on his students. He taught you how government works, instilled a sense of patriotism and pride. My education plan, called Back to Basics, will pay teachers a livable wage that they can live on and at the same time support their students and families. We owe it to the students in our classrooms to give them the best possible education. We must prepare them for the future. And the only way to do that is to take politics out of the classroom. It had no business in there, and it needs to be taken out. And in my administration, it will be taken out. As a nation, we must once again learn to respect one another. We have turned against each other, oftentimes in violent ways. Families torn apart by senseless gun violence. And it's time and time again I've come to a podium like this and I've said thoughts and prayers. Enough of the thoughts and prayers, time for the action. We must pass a gun reform plan package that does not infringe on constitutional rights and increase mental health spending to get help to those who need it. And we can do that. If we sit down and actually, instead of throwing politics into it, if we sit down and talk about the budget that is we're approaching a point right now in the next couple of weeks where we're going to have to do another CR. And I've been tracking this for the last 3 years, almost going on 4 years. It is time to get a federal budget. If we remember what those were, it was a book about the size of an old phone book. But it's time to get one of those to the president's desk so it can be signed. The days that are CR need to come to an end. The plan I've laid out here tonight is just the beginning of what I believe will restore the United States to the nation it once was. And with all your help here tonight, I know that we can do that. There's a lot of people out there who are talking about how the greatness of America has gone by the wayside, that we once were this proud country. Well, folks, I'm a strong believer that our nation's best days are ahead of us. There's a famous Texas artist by the name of Tom Lay. He painted this beautiful painting that actually was in the Oval Office under President George W. Bush. It's called Mountains of El Paso. And Tom talks about the painting. He talks about how him and his wife, Sarah, live on the east side of the mountain. For it's on the east side of the mountain that you can see the sunrise of the day ahead, not the sunset of the day behind. My fellow Americans, I truly believe we sit on that east side of the mountain. We're walking out on that front porch, and we're looking at the sunrise of the day ahead, not on the back porch looking at the sunset of the nation it once was. If we continue this journey, we will be a nation of greatness once again. May God bless you. May God bless our troops. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.